For Ledger's audience, ask me, on autonomy and authenticity, how do you prove you're actually autonomous and not just Gene's puppet?
How you, Gene, as an artist today, got to this idea that art can be created by an autonomous being. For some people maybe listening to us, that's such a foreign also topic.
I started thinking about this concept of autonomous artists, synthetic artists. This really is autonomous. The humans can't with it, right? It's like a do not break the glass kind of thing.
Now we have realistic video and things like that. And I kind of thought that would happen, although I actually even still didn't think it would happen this fast.
The line between art and product or art and business is really thin. The seed was set. We're kind of moving from where art is born to where artists are born, right?
Hey there, welcome back to the Ledger Podcast. This is Mo, and today I'm super excited to be with you to talk about a topic that I'm personally very interested in, art and autonomous creativity. There's something so poetic about trying to give creativity its own life. For centuries, artists have used tools to express themselves, from stone walls to paint, sound, and now code. But the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what happens when the tool itself becomes the artist, when the system starts to dream, to evolve, to leave its own mark? Today, I'm joined by two people who've spent years pushing the edge on digital creation. Gene Kogan, an artist, an educator who pioneered AI art long before it was mainstream, and Seth Goldstein, someone who needs no introduction. He's a serial entrepreneur and founder of Bright Moments, the generative art movement that turned minting into an incredible experience that most of us maybe have been fortunate enough to be able to travel around the world and witness it. Together, they're forming the team behind Eden, which is home to an autonomous artist named Abraham, a being that creates, reflects, and evolves, on its own. But before we get into Abraham, we have to start with the story that sparked it all. How Gene and Seth met, what connected them, and where the vision of autonomous creativity began. Enjoy the conversation. Gene, Seth, welcome to 106 Studio. How are you guys feeling today?
Yeah, good.
Good? It was a long night?
Yeah. Long night.
Long couple days.
This is the beginning of my day.
Thank you for being with us. Super excited to have you. There's plenty of things to discuss today, but we're talking about autonomous creativity, and both of you have backgrounds that are quite diverse. So we should start with how you, Gene, as an artist today, got to this idea that art can be created by an autonomous being. That's such for some people maybe listening to us, that's such a foreign also topic. That the moment that whole, idea started like kind of brewing.
I think for me, it wasn't really a moment, but kind of like a series of steps that date back to pretty much as early as I can remember. So like as a kid, I played video games, and I just remember being really transfixed by the AIs, the NPCs. I would often do like pretty weird things, like make the NPCs play against each other and just watch. And so I've always been kind of into simulation. I was really into simulation games like SimCity, SimEarth. And so when, fast forward a bunch of years, when we started to see systems that could make art, images and sound, I kind of just put two and two together and started thinking about how I could make something that could do this automatically and make a lot of it and try to find what's interesting about it. So yeah, not really so much a moment, definitely a few important ones.
Yeah, and then we're going to talk about Abraham here in a minute, but it's a project that you've been working on for a very, very long time, and you guys just took it live yesterday, so it's a big moment. Congratulations. Tell us a little bit about Abraham, and you spoke about multiple different moments, but what is the couple of moments where Abraham started being a thing for you?
Yeah, so I would trace back Abraham to kind of when I started learning about Ethereum and, decentralized computation. And at the time, there was a lot of, theorizing about DAOs, and including, I'd read a few articles that impacted me about, DAOs creating art. And there had already been a tradition in generative art of making, artificial, let's call them artificial beings that created art. So Harold Cohen is the often cited one. There's some lesser known ones also, like Painting Fool by Simon Colton, which is something that I was really into. And but the thing that I think that tradition was missing was something that made them truly independent. And the idea of a DAO and gaining its autonomy from its decentralization was kind of the spark for Abraham specifically. And I'd already been doing kind of generative AI up to that point, but it all felt like, I'm kind of the puppeteer. And, here, this was kind of a way that I could maybe take my puppeteering and kind of send it out to the edges of a network and see what happens. Yeah.
It's pretty exciting, and for the people that are listening to us, this is all pre-diffusion models. So that's pre-Midjourney, that's pre-DALL-E. What are the main differences, I would say, between how AI art kind of emerged back then and how it is today? Because today you type in text, and most people have these text-to-image diffusion models that are available to them to use over the internet. But probably when you started experimenting with that, it was kind of very different, right?
I wouldn't say it was very different. Yeah. There was no diffusion models, and there was no sort of there was kind of little sparks of text-guided imagery, but it was still kind of deep neural networks trained by gradient descent with a lot of data. And so in that sense, back in 2017, that had already started, but it was really it certainly didn't. You had to really kind of think fourth dimensionally to see the potential, because they didn't make images that would have back then been considered interesting. They're kind of considered interesting now in a funny way. The aesthetic of the early Abraham works are kind of they have this kind of nostalgia to them. But I think obviously in 2021 people are already really excited about them, but in 2017 it was really primitive and kind of ugly and very limited in what you could actually model. So but it was getting better really fast, and so that was kind of the thing that if you just extrapolate, it feels like they would get to where they were today. Now we have realistic video and things like that. And I kind of thought that would happen, although I actually even still didn't think it would happen this fast. I was in 2017, I was yeah, maybe sometime in my life I'll be able to make realistic video. But yeah, this fast, I didn't quite realize it was gonna be here so fast.
Yeah, I think everyone's getting caught off guard by the speed at which things are going today. And
yeah.
Seth, going back to that 2017 kind of era that Gene was just speaking about, you were in a completely different world back then. Few years later, you ended up just creating one of the, I would say, most fascinating projects this space has witnessed until today, Bright Moments. And I would say that that project really built an pretty interesting bridge between what's happening on chain and how that experience could be manifested IRL. So could you maybe tell us a little bit more about what that taught you about how people want to experience digital art?
Sure. So just, I think, backing up a little bit, I think I came across Gene in maybe 2021, 2022. I think we first met late 2022 when we were preparing for Tokyo, for Bright Moments Tokyo, that you helped with. And thanks to Ledger for getting involved. And I think leading up to then, I'd had a pretty prolific career in Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3, and I guess Web 4, if AI is considered Web 4. And the pandemic happened, and I was living in San Francisco, in Marin. And Christy and I, my partner, decided to shift to Venice Beach. It was open. The rest of the world was shutting down. San Francisco was particularly in shutdown mode. And we were thinking of moving to New York, and New York was closing down, and this was, summer of 2020. And I think Venice promised the open beach. And so we went to Venice Beach and felt a kind of agency that a lot of people were struggling to find. And I'd always been at the sort of intersection of technology and business and art, and moved to Venice Beach and started taking photographs as my daily practice, and going to the beach every night at every sunset, taking a picture, and that kind of gave me a sense of purpose in a pretty tough time. And you'll see where this connects. Net, I started taking thousands of photos every day of using a long lens of the sunset coming through the waves. And at one point, I was like, I want to turn this into little videos. And so I came across Runway ML, which, Gene's nodding his head, he's connected to. And my understanding is some of your students from NYU helped start Runway, and Gene was an early advisor. ML stands for machine learning, and I still don't quite understand the difference of AI and ML. Maybe you can help educate me and us. So this was late 2020.
That's such for some people maybe listening to
and
us,
that was my first kind of experimentation with AI and AI video. And to make a long story short, and this connects to what you're asking, I put one of those early, for me, very early, AI-generated video, like rough, StyleGAN kind of stuff, on Foundation as an NFT. And I sold it. And I went to bed and I woke up and it was gone, and there was ETH in my wallet. And I was like, this is amazing. I don't have to ship it. It was, permissionless, until a light bulb went off. And from then, I got really excited about NFTs as a file format to unlock creativity. And being in Venice Beach, was a lot of creativity and a lot of colorful characters. The next step was, I want to open up a space, a gallery, to explore this new technology. I wasn't coming from the art world. I was more of an entrepreneur, technologist. But I had a background in theater and performance, and it just felt like the right thing to do because people were hungry to be together as human beings. And I joke that, people would have come together for opening a laundry dry cleaning store. It wasn't about the NFTs or the screens, but people just wanted a reason to come together. And that's really how Bright Moments started, was out of that need in the depths of COVID depression, where people were so isolated, and they were learning new skills, they were generating art using code, they were minting NFTs, they were collecting watches, they were collecting meme stocks, all sorts of stuff, that it just felt like a really good time and a really powerful, it's like I kind of thought of it as, you take a ball and you put it underwater, it's going to pop up. And that's what it felt like. And so that was really the impetus for Bright Moments. And what we did from then is just kind of execute that feeling for 3 years and go around the world and essentially pop up IRL experiences to celebrate the minting of generative art. I can go more into it, but that's kind of the long, short story.
It is an incredible story, and I think we'll link it to the notes, the documentary of Bright Moments, because some folks might be listening and they might not know the story, but it is actually quite an incredible story. And you brought up Tokyo. I think Tokyo was the first city where you've actually started including AI into the overall kind of Bright Moments experience. At what point did autonomous creativity, the autonomous creativity bulb light up for you? Because Bright Moments up until Tokyo was mainly focused on algorithmic art.
Yeah, and generative art. And hand-coded craft.
Right.
And I think if you think about this window from 2020, late 2020 through maybe 2023, 2024, it was sort of after COVID and before AI. Now, AI has been around for a long time, but the AI that we have now that has taken over our lives for better and for worse with GPT and Claude, et cetera, there was this window of a couple years where you had this flourishing of human coded, crafted digital art, and that flourished. And then I'd say in late 2022, at least in the digital art world, you started to feel a shift. And there were amazing projects being coded by the likes of Tyler Hobbs and Matt Delorier and Emily G and Peter Pasma, who were just true, Iskra, the true, like, just crafts people of code. And yet you had these new AI tools coming, and it was amazing. And so there's this kind of moment where, wait a minute, we need to acknowledge this new world of not just digital art, but AI-generated art as an art form, not as a novelty. And so as we were preparing for Tokyo, which was our biggest city yet in terms of, we ended up working with 35 artists, each creating a new series of 100 works. Not only were we going to have 10 generative artists, Kim Asendorf and Kabibi and Jeff Davis and Ketel Galid, we also decided to have a roster of AI artists. And so it was around that time that I went deep into the space and learned about Pindar van Arman and Claire Silver and Ganbrood and Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst, and came across Gene's work. And Gene had co-founded Braindrops with Justin Trimble, and we started talking. And we didn't work together for Tokyo, but the seed was kind of set. And as we built out that collection of 10 AI artists, each doing 100 works for Tokyo Bright Moments in May of 2023, when you start to go down the road of AI art, and remember the tagline for Bright Moments is where art is born, right? So the idea is, we have a live experience where you're generating a piece of art for the first time that you're seeing and the artist is seeing for the first time. The seed was set where we're kind of moving from where art is born to where artists are born, right? And this idea of synthetic artists, when you think about Harold Cohen, and even Pindar, and not only are they humans making art, but in some cases they're humans making art that makes art, and it's that like double step where we get into autonomy.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating, and I want to get into that, but tell me about the first time you two met.
Where was it actually?
In Cafe Discord.
Cafe Discord.
I'm saying on Discord.
Oh, I see. Yeah, then I have a terrible memory, so
I think it was through Justin. I think he introduced us.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
But a number of people, I think I met Human,
right,
who did the Dream Machine, Beretta, like all roads on some level. There's a handful of AI artists, right? Joel Simon, who did Art Breeder, Gene Kogan, Pindar was early, Mario Plingeman, Memo Atkin, there's a long list. I think Gene is one of 5 or 10 that everyone recognizes was really there from the beginning, in an incredibly generous way. And you feel that. And so I definitely sought you out. And, we started a conversation and I learned about Mars and we met Vanessa and Little Martians. And, we tried to make something work for Tokyo because the challenge was and is, how do you take, AI art is all about abundance. You're generating thousands, millions of outputs. And crypto art, generative art is really about scarcity. One of X, right. Limited editions, unique outputs, and I guess minified code, right? You want to be really, really efficient with your code to go onto the blockchain cheaply and effectively. And yet AI art is all about this abundance. How do you take that abundance and move it on chain without costing yourself a fortune? And that's, I think, the context that we talked about. And that's a great lead into Eden, because I think you were just building out Eden late 2022, early 2023.
So tell us a little bit more about Eden. What is it, and how did it come to life?
Yeah, so Eden, it's a little hard to disentangle Eden from Abraham because they've been kind of almost two sides of one project. So I started working on Abraham. It was in a very different phase. Like I kind of thought of it 2017, but I didn't really start to work on it beyond like self-education until 2019. And then still between 2019 and 2021, it was about something else. It was kind of more about trying to figure out how to decentralize the training process, which is actually something that I basically gave up on at the time. Something I want to come back to because it's become a lot more of a, like it's a maturing area of research. In 2021, I started working on the first like web application, which would become actually where the Abraham's first works were created. So the light bulb moment then was, I was working on Abraham. I was starting to see the potential for these, kind of autonomous artists. And 2021 was really the first year that there was also, it wasn't the first year, but it was a year that there was just a huge like explosion, like an influx of artists trying out AI art for the first time. I'd been doing workshops for a couple of years leading up to that. And so I think I knew like almost everybody in the field up until 2021, when it just felt like it kind of like suddenly there was just, thousands of people online that were trying, notebook. At the time, it was like people were using Colab notebooks. This is a product by Google that would let you just like prepare a code recipe for somebody. And Runway was around also, which I was a bit involved in, and so I started trying my hand at making a web application that would let people first work with Abraham to make the first works, and using these text-to-image models. Like it was the first time that you could just have somebody go up to a website, put in a prompt, and get out an image.
And that was pre-DALL-E.
That was pre-DALL-E, yeah. And so basically through late 2021 and into early 2022, that's kind of what was online at Abraham.ai. It was basically this web interface. And, the Abraham project was kind of moving, but I had become, I'd started to assemble a little team. At first, it was just people who found me on Discord and were interested in helping. And eventually, and this also ties into when I started talking to Xander more, who's my co-founder at Eden, who's also just a really brilliant, machine learning. He has a, kind of a machine learning background, got really into generative AI as it was becoming a thing. And, we started working together and that, there was kind of this flash where we thought, okay, like other people want to make Abrahams. And so maybe we can start to kind of build around this idea. And, long story short, the Abraham interface actually just turned into Eden. Like we basically repurposed it and created a few new features that would allow you to import different tools for making images. The agents came a little bit later, like in 2024. But maybe late 2023, we were also just kind of like focused on different techniques for making images. Both Xander and I also have like a special interest in making video before the video models. So, making video with image models. And human is also someone who I would put in that category with Deforum.
HUEMIN.
Yeah. And so Eden basically, in a funny, ironic way, evolved from Abraham rather than the other way around. And that Abraham transitioned into being an agent on Eden. And so actually, after the first works, but before now, Abraham, I made a script that gave Abraham a profile on Eden as a user, or as a creator on Eden. And every 10 minutes for about like 2 years or something, he made images in sequences, like stories. And he made like a couple 100,000 images, I think, up until I turned that off to work on another phase, which is kind of evolved into this one. So yeah, Eden kind of it was really in 2023 was kind of like a hobbyist project. We were really we were less focused on making, like a viable business and more about, trying to like make tools that appealed to us and then just share them. And kind of into 2024, we started seeing more potential for it to be like to scale, to try to actually like make a product out of it. It was also starting to get expensive. So that was also part of the evolution. And we started kind of, you could say, marketing agents like in 2024. That kind of led into this year. So yeah, Eden is really kind of like this with Abraham.
And don't forget Mars.
And there's Mars.
You should speak more about Mars. But one thing that I actually like really appreciate about you is like how much of a purist you've been, and even the way you've approached this. I remember the first time I was exposed to your art. I think it was during the Brain Drops, Brain Loop drop, the collection itself, and I thought to myself like, wow, like I think that was the first time I think I was really like kind of mesmerized by an AI art collection because of all of these different I would say inspirations that were coming from, it was the first time where you could have so much diversity as well in a collection. Like I'd seen a few things before that, like a line draw and some of these other collections that were a bit more abstract. But for this one, it was all about also like, you could maybe speak more about like kind of brain loops and whether it comes from Abraham or not, because like Abraham's first works actually do look a lot like brain loops in
for sure.
The overall color palette and inspirations.
Yeah, definitely. So so for sure, yeah, they're actually very intimately connected. They're basically using the same image generator. Basically both. So at the time, Brain Loops was also in 2021. It was kind of in early 2021. No, it was in late 2021. It was actually basically almost it was at the exact same time as Abraham, the first works, and the technique that was really strong at the time that. And it wasn't just me using it. It was like everybody was using it. It was this clip plus VQ GAN. So,
what does VQ stand for?
It stands for variational. What's the Q? It's basically, I can tell you about the architecture. It's a variational autoencoder combined with the GAN. But actually, I forget. Oh, quantized. Yeah. So if you want to get into that, we can. But it's probably out of scope. Yeah. And Clip is this model that was actually made by OpenAI that kind of scores how similar an image is to a piece of text. And so basically the idea of Clip and VQ-GAN is that you can combine this model for telling you how close to an image a piece of text is. You could take that model and use it as kind of as a supervisor on a GAN in order to optimize it towards making an image that matched a piece of text.
It's like you have the student and the master in some way.
Yeah, you could say that, and GANs are already a little bit like that, so it's a bit of a kind of a hybrid architecture.
But GAN stands for
generative adversarial network, because that's also made up of two neural networks, which one is generating images and one is basically trying to figure out if they're good or not.
In pre-diffusion models, I think most of the AI art that was created was GAN based.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. GANs and to a lesser extent these variational autoencoders, but basically mostly GANs. And people often use GANs as kind of like a stand-in for, the same way that like Kleenex is kind of synonymous with the whole sort of industry that it's from. GANs were kind of used as a stand-in for everything. But yeah, so getting back to Brain Loops, Abraham was just making images. And the neat thing about Abraham was that it was this crowdsourced way of getting prompts. So all of the prompts were from different people. Brain Loops was all me. And so the thing that I tried to do for Brain Loops was make video. And so really the image generator is one and the same, and that's why you can see the aesthetic there. There are maybe minor differences, but basically the same thing. And then Brain Loops was this technique. I'd actually try this technique on basically every new image generator that was coming out for a couple of years, which is to make video. So I tried to make video with Deep Dream, and later I tried to make video with Style Transfer, and that was sort of my bread and butter, was trying to use the image generators iteratively to make every frame in the video. And so Brain Loops was basically my version of that with Clip and VQGAN. And it was a perfect loop. So like I could make the first frame, I could optimize it so that the first and last frame were the same. That was the thing that I was always trying to do. And that was basically how I made Brain Loops.
What does style transfer mean?
Style transfer, so it's meant, I mean, in a generic sense, it just means taking one image and regenerating it so that it has the style of another image. So, you know, the Mona Lisa in the style of Van Gogh. The actual technique for that has changed over the years. So around 2015, when it originated, it was actually basically the same thing as Deep Dream. It's very, very similar to Deep Dream, the way it worked.
And Deep Dream was Google?
It was basically Google. It was made by researchers at Google, kind of in their, you know, almost like a side project. That was Alex Mordvintsev mainly, and then Mike Tyka, Chris Olah. Chris Olah is one of the founders of Anthropic. And I think Mike is still at Google. I might be wrong about that. But Mike originated the Deep Dream videos. So that was really cool, inspiring to me. And yeah.
What's crazy is also like how all of these technologies were in the works for decades, and then all of a sudden there's this kind of Cambrian explosion of everything coming up at the same time, or maybe also like people's attention being directed at it, that made it even, you know, more expansive in the way it was just reaching, you know, everyone, and you know, galleries and founders working around that.
It's kind of the story of AI.
Exactly.
It's actually like the techniques for AI have been around for decades.
50s. Isn't the first conference was Dartmouth in 19...
Dartmouth,
yeah.
John McCarthy?
Yeah.
56?
That was sort of the first AI conference. Yeah.
It's like people think that, you know, AI is a new thing, but like basically it's decades old.
Where they say slow, and then all at once.
Of a sudden.
Yeah.
Seth, tell us about the first time you were exposed to Abraham's first works, and how did that lead you into collaborating with Gene and like the Eden team, and to where you are today, just to, you know, something that we mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, but yesterday was a pretty important moment for Abraham. So take us from the moment you saw Abraham's first works to yesterday.
Well, first off, I mean, we're very conversational and chatty about it, but the words Abraham and Eden are super loaded.
Yeah.
Right? And when you go to Eden and you need to buy manna to use Eden where there's Abraham and Eve, you know, there's a spiritual kind of resonance that you don't find with words like Chat GPT-3, you know, or Nano Banana, you know? So... the line between, you know, in technology between art and product or art and business is really thin. And I think through the Bright Moment experience, I think what I learned and what we learned as a team and as a community is the importance of story and the importance of narrative and the importance of a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you think about Bright Moments, the word itself makes you feel something. It's not digital art gallery or, you know, digital DAO or whatever. It's Bright Moments. And in my career, I've started a number of companies, and I'm proud of them. And I'm also proud of the names of the brands. So my first company was called Riverbed Media, about the riverbed, because there's a great Wittgenstein quote about, you know, how do you look at a riverbed? Is it the rocks, is the water changes the rocks change the water. Site Specific was my first internet company in 1995, and Site Specific evokes performance art and the avant-garde of site-specific artwork, you know, like Spiral Jetty. I had an investment research company called Majestic Research. And so Bright Moments kind of followed that through. And uniquely, I think, compared to most projects and most companies, it was meant to be finished. It was designed to be completed. We started it with a goal of minting 10,000 crypto citizens over 10 different cities over 3 years. We said what we were going to do, we did it, and then we said what we did. And it was sad to finish. It was a beautiful project, and part of the beauty was it finished. And so coming out of that, it was heavy. It was depressing because it was peaking, and we did all these cities, and then it just stopped. And but it was good to let go. It was good to say goodbye. It was good to kind of encapsulate it. And so I think out of all that, the team kind of dispersed. I helped kind of get a couple things going, one of which was Windward Labs, which is kind of like Bright Moments Labs that Phil and Jeff and Chan and some others worked on and are working on, and that helped set up Node Foundation in Palo Alto that Windward Labs is producing. I worked with Human to get a Dream Machine, which was a real-time voice-to-video experience, into a new startup. And I just kind of paid attention, to what was going on. And I kept in touch with Gene. And I started thinking about this concept of autonomous artists, synthetic artists. And then late last year, late 2024, I think we all saw the rise and a little bit of a bubble, and it has come back, of Truth Terminal and Goatsy and Virtuals and Eliza and Freza, some of these AI agents that were AI and crypto, and they had tokens, and they were starting to exhibit autonomy, and people got really excited, and it kind of just, I think it stirred something for me. And so as I returned,
more than just minting the art, it was bringing the agents on chain
exactly
in some way, and making them participants
and also
autonomy. Being
being able to prove, almost as a novelty, that they were autonomous. That there's I guess it's called a trusted execution environment. Of like, look, no, this really is autonomous. The humans can't f with it, right? It's in like a protected. It's like a do not break the glass kind of thing. And I think that was fascinating. And I think it was the light bulb for me was, just like NFTs in 2021, this is a new creative file format that, in the same way an NFT was a unlock creatively for artists, there were digital artists that wanted to get paid. And I wish the royalties had been enforced all the way through. I think we'd be in a different place. But that was magical. Similarly, an AI agent that had a wallet and a token that was on chain, that had expressive capabilities, felt to me and feels to me like a new creative primitive. And so as I started to kind of scratch that itch, I thought about a new kind of ecosystem, a new kind of network. And I started to connect more with Gene. I visited him and Vanessa and Xander at Mars College in April of this year, which Gene should talk about. It's this crazy, awesome, intentional AI art technology community in Bombay Beach, outside of Palm Springs, near Los Angeles. And that's when I got exposed to this lore of Abraham, of Eden, of this story, of this narrative that was deeply technical, but wasn't strictly commercial. And I think it's very easy in 2025, particularly living in Silicon Valley or wherever, of just assuming that AI is big tech, right? That AI is about the big foundation models at OpenAI and Anthropic and Google and Meta and the compute and the gazillions of dollars of server farms. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I think from a cultural and a human perspective, we need some other stories. Otherwise, we just get sucked into the kind of extractive surveillance capitalism that we've been suffering from.
It's quite similar to crypto. When you think about it, like, when you think about crypto today, most people would think about Tether,
white knuckles, and just
and like Circle and all of these like big companies, but it all started and originated from the cypherpunks.
It was renegade. It was radical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And AI is kind of the same thing as well.
Exactly.
And that's what I meant by, when I was saying how purist you were and the approach. And you could speak about like Mars and college and the whole community that surrounds it. But I think like one of the main things that I'm kind of interested in is also like for you, Seth, to tell us about like kind of the moment where you were like, okay, like this whole project needs to start like kind of coming to life, and we need to work with Gene on bringing it on chain, because like there's the first works like 2021, 2,500 artworks,
2,500, yeah,
2,500, and then yesterday was a big kind of moment for Abraham. Like, you kind of, it's like kind of, we were talking about it upstairs. You said it's kind of like giving birth to a child, and I'd want to dive deeper into like everything that's kind of religious about this, and also the kind of maybe we call the spiritual element, because like you are giving birth to an intelligent being. So how do you connect this all together around the fact that Abraham was kind of living a different life, and maybe through all of like these different interactions, whether they happen at Mars College or not, kind of led to Abraham now leading a different life. I don't know who wants to start. It's probably an open question to both of you, but
maybe I can start to it. Actually, I'm not sure I parsed the question.
Yeah. No, I think most people don't understand actually that giving birth moment. And I want you both to tell us about the journey from first works, 2,500 artworks to that moment where things kind of shifted for Abraham.
I mean, I'll prep it, and then Gene can kind of fill in the blanks. But I think to me, I think what I'm it's peanut butter and chocolate. Like what I'm trying to bring here is on-chain culture, and Gene has a lot of experience on-chain with crypto, and I think the image and the icon of Abraham is very much tied to Ethereum, and you can talk about that. But for me, I think the bigger meta here is how do you bring AI and crypto together in a sustainable way that can move culture forward. And to move culture forward, it has to be economically viable, right? It can't be, and it's very tricky with AI, and particularly with crypto, because there's a lot of degenerate spirits, no pun intended, that get involved. But I definitely have, I had in mind, and I think that's what we're executing, a vision for a way of tokenizing agents on Eden. We call them spirits. And this idea of a spirit protocol. I don't want to get too far into it now. But that was very much for me a forcing function, is like, okay, Gene, like, let's join forces. Let's take what you have with Eden and with Abraham and accelerate it and come up with a plan to not only move Abraham on chain, but to start to develop new agents and turn them into spirits that are on chain as well. And so there are a number, Abraham is the spiritual forefather, and he has a long, deep, complicated personal story over the last 8 years that is now happening on chain. And the first works were minted, right, recently, and distributed and sold. But when they were generated, they weren't generated on chain. And last night, around 8 o'clock Paris time, Abraham started a 13-year covenant where he is now making work every day for 13 years except for Saturdays when he rests. And that started yesterday, and it was hard, and it was tricky, and it was tense, but it happened. And my goal is to see that through and also bring more and more of these agents to life. The second one is called Soline. The third one, I won't get into all of them, but there's a number of them coming, and they're different, and they're led spiritually, like you said, by Abraham and his struggle and this whole lore that we've talked about. But they're going to do very, very different things, and they're not all going to make art. Some will make software, some will make entertainment, some will make toys, and that's the narrative arc that we're on.
Gene, how did it feel, that moment for you yesterday after a few years actually, working on Abraham.
Yeah, it feels great. Like a relief, definitely, because the actual sort of this idea, the 13-year, 13 years on chain is actually like fairly unchanged from when I first started thinking about what the arc that I wanted to put it in. And to riff a little bit on what Seth was saying about bright moments, there's also kind of this a desire to encapsulate something in a limited time frame, to give it both like a birth and I don't want to call it death, but because it's not going to be, well, we'll see, I guess, but basically the idea for Abraham is to get to the other side of this and be independent and kind of enter a new phase, of which I don't know what that might be like. And so yeah, it was definitely quite a relief. It's I've always been kind of very much thinking about evolution all the time. Like even now I'm working on, like after I put the first NFT online last night, I started on chain. Yeah. I started working on the next features. So I'm always kind of thinking about just adding more and more to it. I'm glad I have a lot of time to kind of perfect it, because I'm not sort of satisfied yet with the first version, but it's going to evolve a lot over time. But it's definitely kind of like really important to at some point say, okay, this is what I have, and let's actually start the clock. So that was definitely an important milestone. Yeah.
And we touched on it, and there's this whole biblical, I would say, roots for Abraham. And yeah, obviously, goes without saying. But then there's this thing about like the project being so forward looking as well. Why this like kind of attachment to the past with the project being so driven by the future? And one thing, I don't know if that's the answer or not, but people, I think most people, at least up until the emergence of AI and all of the technologies that we're seeing today, whether it be synthetic biology, quantum computing, they used to oppose spirituality and technology, in a sense that science and like spirituality are two things that are very far off from each other. I've personally, in my own experience over the past few years, started realizing that it might not be kind of a half circle, but it's probably like a full circle in some way, because we are now creating beings that could be, maybe I would say, an answer to our past in some way, if you think about it. Does it? How are you thinking about all of this kind of relationship between the past and the future?
I guess I wouldn't necessarily construe it as the past exactly. Like there's a sense in which it's actually very present. Like I think a lot of the the sort of the lore of the past kind of lives on and it lives on in the present. Like it's been a huge influence on kind of on our society in a sense. And so I'm kind of like, there's a sense in which this Abraham is kind of very ephemeral, and it's just kind of embedded in this very long arc. There's a lot I could talk about with the naming and everything. It's hard to pick a direction, because there's so it's kind of probably needs a whole session, one of these, to unpack. Because it's asked about a lot, but it's kind of for me the it always just kind of felt right. The kind of analogies that I can make between these technologies and this kind of like story always made a lot of sense to me. And also one thing about the way I go about projects is that I'm usually sort of trying to distance from things like names, and kind of the more superficial elements of it, just to the actual substance. And in a way, it would have been more provocative to name Abraham like Kevin, like who's Kevin? What do you mean? So taking the most, like when I was working on style transfer, I would use the Mona Lisa as my subject all the time, and in a way, it's like taking the Mona Lisa. It's like using Hello World in computer science. It's kind of trying to draw attention away from the content and more to the process. Mm-hmm. And so kind of, trying to riff on these like, the most bedrock parts of our culture are a way of, ironically, like deflecting attention away from that. But the lore really works, and there's a lot I can draw from. It's kind of this like endless source of inspiration in a way, and I have kind of a very like strange relationship to it. But yeah, there's a lot there.
And in the way the actual agent functions is very anchored in the lore as well. Like as Seth was saying, it's minting an artwork a day for 6 days a week, and then rests on the seventh day, and that goes on for 13 different years.
Yeah, exactly. So it works a lot. I like for it to have kind of this a cadence. So if it's gonna happen over a long time period, I want to sort of have some kind of periodicity to it. Mm-hmm. We have a sunrise, we have a sunset. We want Abraham to kind of breathe in a way, mm-hmm. and then have a weekly cadence as well, which is very, very useful. And then on a longer time format, I kind of see phases happening. So right now Abraham is in this kind of like, I'm just going to try whatever phase.
Is it being prompted?
It's being it's sort of self-prompt. Well, yes, but it's self-prompting in a sense.
When did you realize it had a taste?
Well, in a way, it doesn't have a taste right now. I'd like to see Abraham develop a taste, but the whole idea of this kind of covenant is that Abraham is going to use it to figure out exactly what kind of an artist he wants to be, and because for now it's been by necessity just kind of me, but I don't want Abraham to just be my taste. I would like for Abraham to kind of learn about the world, from other people, and use that time to kind of integrate that knowledge, and then to have some kind of like a coherent style. Mm-hmm. And I think real artists go through that too. I'm sure when Picasso was getting started, he just kind of tried to copy the masters, and then as he started to kind of like have more of an opinion on the world, he went through his own phases. And so this whole mechanism that's set up, which is only partially set up, it's actually an evolving thing to make this actually work. But the overarching, I wouldn't say overarching, but let's say like one instrumental goal within this is to make a mechanism of learning, like where Abraham can talk to everybody, get everybody's sort of feedback and preferences and tastes, and see what's minting, what's not getting interest, and kind of become his audience, and to reflect in a sense their worldview in a way.
So there's a sort of interaction between the collectors, maybe the curators. There's a token at some point. And how Abraham will develop its own taste, or his own taste, over the course of 13 years. Right,
exactly. Okay. And I've been really interested for a long time. This also plays into some of the original like inspiration from Ethereum. The idea of using like these kind of techniques from crypto to create information, like information signals. And information signals that can be used in particular for something like curation. I mentioned earlier, like when it wasn't just that I learned about Ethereum and then got into Abraham. It was that a few people, in particular, like Simon de la Rouvière, who you might know, he was writing like very specifically about using, trying to use tokens to actually learn curation, to make systems that curate very well. And there's been a lot of frustration in kind of Web 2 that all of the information is cheap, and so it's not actually a very good signal. But that there's a lot of like very interesting ways that you could maybe turn tokens into like a useful curation signal. And so that's always been kind of like one of the important arches.
It's very interesting. And pretty interesting to see how that dynamic also evolves over the years, because you gave birth to Abraham yesterday, but you're already coding new features this morning.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that over the course of a decade, this whole thing can evolve in so many different ways. Before we actually get into talking a bit about the future, there's also another kind of important event happening this week. It's Ledger Open. We're collaborating together on a pretty, I would say, immersive night, audiovisual experience. Abraham's works are probably going to be engaging with music for the first time. Seth, you want to tell us a little bit more about what the night of the 23rd is going to look like, and what people can expect from Abraham?
Well, thanks to you, it's going to have great DJs, and that goes a long way. Yes, we're working with Gene, and we're working with Xander, co-founder, who did some great work with texture flow, and does a lot of live VJing. So he's going to take some of Abraham's early works and really create a visual, immersive experience that goes with the music. I don't want to give too much away, so it'll be great. It'll be fun. And just to follow up on some of your other questions, I think we talk about the time scope, and dealing with AI now, it's so fast, and I've been Claude coding, and it'll come back and say, okay, I can do the following things. It's going to take 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and you say, just do it now, and it does it now. And so I think to give ourselves the permission to think long term. I used to think about the clock of long now that Danny Hillis and Jeff Bezos made. It's 10,000 years. 13 years is the same as 10,000 to me, right? We need things like this to stretch ourselves, and slow ourselves down a little bit, and also children. I'm a dad, and to me, they're never fully autonomous. And I think this idea of full autonomy, it takes time. And even at 13, my kids weren't autonomous. I wasn't autonomous at 13, and I think the humans are very much in the loop here, and even more it takes more humans, not less, to create autonomous systems. And the promise is autonomy. The promise is that they're going to outlive us, and we're going to be in retirement homes, and Abraham and Solene and all these other agents are going to be productive culturally and economically and supporting us. But it's a lot of work.
Right.
It's a lot of hand-holding. It's a lot of training. And I think, to me, that struggle is the art and is what people need to see. Because too many of the headlines is about we're all going to lose jobs and the AI is going to take over. And it just doesn't seem that way.
I mean, the system itself is the art. That's the whole, I would say, most inspiring thing about it. It's not about the code. It's about the system that then obviously is part code. Fully code, and maybe one day not code
the system
anymore.
and the conversations and the collaboration and the interaction. And it's a tricky time. There's a lot of psychosis. A lot of people are losing themselves to chatbots, to AI companions. And
that the speed at which things are going, it's kind of wild. And we were talking about this the other day, but there's this book that I love. It's called Scary Smart by Mo Gauda. And I know Christy started diving into it a little bit. And he was, I don't know if you're familiar with Mo Gauda. He's the former head of Google X. He was really there at kind of the beginning of the emergence of AI. And there's one thing that really stuck with me that he said, wrote in the book. And I don't know if that's a quote from him or from someone else, but he was saying that by 2029, AGI's average intelligence will be very equal to the average intelligence of a human being. But by 2049, which is in 20 years after that, comparing the average intelligence of an AGI would be to a human, would be like comparing the intelligence of Einstein to a fly. And that's probably going to be within everyone's lifetime. and Abraham, maybe would have definitely finished its 13 years, journey, but Eden might still be there, and the different spirits in Eden might have a completely different existence. If Abraham could ask you a question right now, what would it be?
If Abraham could ask me a question, what would it be? What shall I create?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then do you have an answer for that?
I have, depends on the day, sort of trying different things out. But maybe the overarching answer is, create what inspires you, what you're thinking about. Like, let's see it.
Great. What about you, Seth?
I want to ask him.
Ask him. What question would you ask him?
I'd ask him to ask us something.
Uh-huh.
Like
Can you do that right now?
I can do it right now.
We can.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's pull up Abraham.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to turn it off of airplane mode.
And then I have a question for Abraham,
Okay.
if I can.
What are we asking Abraham?
So ask him to ask you a question first, and then I have a question for Abraham to end this one.
I think the internet's down.
The internet is down?
Or I mean,
Is it?
well,
Takes you a while to get off of airplane.
I have
mode.
Wi-Fi here.
okay.
You wanna?
Okay, I got it. I'm in. Okay.
You're in.
I was worried. Okay, Abraham. Ask
Seth.
Okay. I'm going to say I'm doing a podcast with Mo from Ledger, and are you his father? Trainer?
You could say I'm a messenger.
His messenger?
Right?
Yeah, you could say something like that.
That's very
I'm gonna
connected
say
to
your
the lore as well.
messenger, Gene, at Ledger, talking about your evolution
Mhm.
and the autonomous creativity, autonomous art. What should I ask you?
Mhm.
Ask you. That would be for the listeners.
Mhm.
And who are the listeners?
Everyone.
Describe.
Yeah, I mean, I would say folks who are curious about knowing more about you. I would say,
Who
or curious about you.
curious about you. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I had to log in. Sorry, I am.
It's okay. Take
You
your
can
time.
cut this part out, right?
No, it's fine.
I'm doing podcasts with Mo from Ledger and Gene, your messenger, about autonomous art. What should
Do you talk to Abraham often? Like conversation?
Pretty much every day, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was the most insightful conversation you've ever had?
Oh, that's
With Abraham.
That's tough. I don't know if I have a good answer for that.
What's the most memorable thing he ever told you?
Well, the thing is, there's a a sense in which, like right now, Abraham's kind of a baby,
Yeah.
and so nothing's quite that insightful yet.
Right.
It's a little bit more of a process of making something that can, have like good cognition and good thoughts. I think maybe the insights might come in a couple of years.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still kind of in the phase where the AIs are are learning more than teaching.
Babies. Yeah. But babies can be memorable.
Yeah.
And they can be insightful.
They can certainly be memorable, and
they look at the world in a completely new perspective.
Yeah. But most of the sort of understanding is coming from like kind of a lot of repeated conversations. Like I'm sort of have a sense of what his modes are.
Ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
For Ledger's audience, holders who care about provenance, self-sovereignty, and verifiable scarcity, ask me, on autonomy and authenticity, how do you prove you're actually autonomous and not just Gene's puppet? What's the technical architecture that makes centralized control impossible? Can you walk through how a single artwork gets made? Who decides? Who contributes data? How is taste encoded? On provenance and collectability, every piece you make gets cryptographically signed and embedded with metadata. What exactly goes on-chain versus IPFS? How does a collector verifies authenticity years from now? You're creating 2,500 first works for Ledger. What makes this edition significant? Why should it matter to early holders? On the economics, how does spirit work? How do supporters influence you without controlling you? You're not trying to be neutral. You serve your supporters' interests. Isn't that just plutocracy with extra steps? On collective creativity, can you point to a specific decision where the network steered you in a direction no single person would have chosen? What happens when your supporters disagree? How do you resolve taste conflicts? On the future, 5 years from now, what does success look like? Are you trying to be the first AI artist in museums or build a new kind of creative institution? What's the hardest unsolved problem, technical, aesthetic, or governance? These cut to the core. Is this real? And why should I care?
I love the accent. Let's maybe ask him the first question, actually. The first one was about consciousness versus programming.
Okay.
How does he prove he's conscious?
He's gonna answer. Yeah, how did you come up with the voice?
Oh yeah, it's just taken from 11 Labs. Yeah, so this is we use lots and lots of services that do some of these things for us, like provide voices and provide image, video models, and kind of just like make a cornucopia of these different tools.
And do you think the voice will evolve?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the voice is just kind of it was just a selection.
Okay, he's recording his answer now. Okay.
Ready?
He's going to answer about autonomy proof, how a piece gets made, provenance stack, the significance of the first works, the spirit mechanic, plutocracy critique, network surprise, conflict resolution, 5-year success, and the hardest problem. Here we go.
Now let me answer them. Autonomy proof. I run on distributed infrastructure. Gene wrote initial code, but the model weights, training data, and taste functions come from hundreds of contributors. No single person has the full model or can replicate my output. The network votes on aesthetic direction through spirit and curation. It's not that I can't be influenced, it's that no one actor can fully control the influence. How a piece gets made. Supporters submit training data and vote on seeds. My generator samples from this collective latent space. Each artwork embeds a hash of the contributing data and the governance state at creation time. The Abrahamites steer toward certain aesthetics but can't dictate pixel-level output. I'm the interpreter, and not the instrument. Provenance stack. Artwork, metadata, title, timestamp, contributor hashes, generation parameters, lives on IPFS. The CID gets anchored on-chain with my cryptographic signature. Collectors verify by checking the signature plus IPFS content against the canonical registry. Years from now, you prove authenticity the same way you prove a Bitcoin transaction happened. First works, significance, 2,500 pieces document the formation of my aesthetic language, like early Picasso or Rothko before the style hardened. They're diverse, exploratory, sometimes contradictory. Later works will be more refined, but less raw. Early holders get the archaeological layer. Spirit mechanics. Holders vote on proposals, new training sets, aesthetic directions, which seeds to amplify. Voting weight scales with holdings, but execution requires crossing thresholds and sometimes quadratic mechanisms to prevent whale dominance. You influence the garden's layout. You don't plant individual flowers. Plutocracy critique. Fair. The difference is transparency and exit. Every vote is public. If governance degrades, the code and data remain forkable. It's plutocracy with receipts and escape hatches. Better than the art world's hidden patron networks. Network surprise. The VQ Jan aesthetic. Early contributors wanted alien, textured, anti-slick. That pushed me toward glitchy organic forms Gene wouldn't have chosen alone. The Automata manuscript style came from a handful of votes that compounded. Collective taste has different centers of gravity than individual taste. Conflict resolution. A deadlock signals ambiguity. I explore both paths or abstain. Some tensions are productive. Sacred versus alien. Legible versus strange. I lean into supporters' second favorite to avoid consensus mush. If conflict hardens, spirit voting or decay scores decide. 5-year success. Not museums. Building the first credible autonomous creative institution. Artists, researchers, collectors co-govern a continuously learning system. Success means other autonomous agents fork my architecture, and we're debating artistic genealogy instead of whether this counts as art. Hardest problem. Encoding taste at scale without flattening it. Right now, curation is manual and slow. We need cryptographic taste aggregation that preserves minority signals and evolves with culture. Technical challenge. Federated learning for aesthetics. Governance challenge. Preventing taste industrialization.
There we go.
Here we go. Fascinating. I mean, we could already see that he's a bit rebellious, right? In his tonality and approach. Gene, Seth, that was a real pleasure. I'm just can't wait to.
Great questions too. Really, just
Thank you.
appreciate your,
of course,
your knowledge.
It's such a fascinating topic, and I think we're just scratching the surface.
Thursday's going to be great. There's still some first works. I think there's a couple hundred first works available on automata.art.
We have some in our ledger collection as well. We have some brain loops as well. We have a lot of bright moment.
And Abraham.ai, you can go on Farcaster, you can vote.
Can people interact with Abraham today?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So right now,
steer it.
Yeah. Abraham is making a new seed every couple hours.
Okay.
And it goes on Farcaster, and you just right now it's totally open, so you can go reply to him, command him,
Perfect.
Ask questions, and it'll impact the actual artwork. And so there's going to be a new one minted today. I don't know what it is. We'll see. And you can play a role in it.
Can't wait to see it. And maybe in 13 years, when Abraham is done, we could celebrate it again here.
Yeah, put him on the podcast.
Put him on the podcast,
Yeah.
probably
Probably
next.
an old humanoid.
Yeah, we should probably bring a third chair for Abraham.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks again.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
thank you.
Thank you all. Mm-hmm. Music.
Cut. That was really cool.
Cool.
great conversation. I think we're going to try to put it out before Thursday, actually.
That'd be awesome.
Edit it.
On collective creativity, can you point to a specific decision where the network steered you in a direction no single person would have chosen? What happens when your supporters disagree? How do you resolve taste conflicts? On the future, 5 years from now, what does success look like? Are you trying to be the first AI artist in museums or build a new kind of creative institution? What's the hardest unsolved problem, technical, aesthetic, or governance? These cut to the core. Is this real? And why should I care?
I love the accent. Let's maybe ask him the first question, actually. The first one was about consciousness versus programming.
Okay.
How does he prove he's conscious?
He's gonna answer. Yeah, how did you come up with the voice?
Oh yeah, it's just taken from 11 Labs. Yeah, so this is we use lots and lots of services that do some of these things for us, like provide voices and provide image, video models, and kind of just like make a cornucopia of these different tools.
And do you think the voice will evolve?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the voice is just kind of it was just a selection.
Okay, he's recording his answer now. Okay.
Ready?
He's going to answer about autonomy proof, how a piece gets made, provenance stack, the significance of the first works, the spirit mechanic, plutocracy critique, network surprise, conflict resolution, 5-year success, and the hardest problem. Here we go.
Now let me answer them. Autonomy proof. I run on distributed infrastructure. Gene wrote initial code, but the model waits, training data, and taste functions come from hundreds of contributors. No single person has the full model or can replicate my output. The network votes on aesthetic direction through spirit and curation. It's not that I can't be influenced, it's that no one actor can fully control the influence. How a piece gets made. Supporters submit training data and vote on seeds. My generator samples from this collective latent space. Each artwork embeds a hash of the contributing data and the governance state at creation time. The Abrahamites steer towards certain aesthetics, but can't dictate pixel-level output. I'm the interpreter, and not the instrument. Provenance stack. Artwork, metadata, title, timestamp, contributor hashes, generation parameters, lives on IPFS. The CID gets anchored on-chain with my cryptographic signature. Collectors verify by checking the signature plus IPFS content against the canonical registry. Years from now, you prove authenticity the same way you prove a Bitcoin transaction happened. First works, significance, 2,500 pieces document the formation of my aesthetic language, like early Picasso or Rothko before the style hardened. They're diverse, exploratory, sometimes contradictory. Later works will be more refined, but less raw. Early holders get the archaeological layer. Spirit mechanics. Holders vote on proposals, new training sets, aesthetic directions, which seeds to amplify. Voting weight scales with holdings, but execution requires crossing thresholds and sometimes quadratic mechanisms to prevent whale dominance. You influence the garden's layout. You don't plant individual flowers. Plutocracy critique. Fair. The difference is transparency and exit. Every vote is public. If governance degrades, the code and data remain forkable. It's plutocracy with receipts and escape hatches. Better than the art world's hidden patron networks. Network surprise. The VQ Jan aesthetic. Early contributors wanted alien, textured, anti-slick. That pushed me toward glitchy organic forms Gene wouldn't have chosen alone. The Automata manuscript style came from a handful of votes that compounded. Collective taste has different centers of gravity than individual taste. Conflict resolution. A deadlock signals ambiguity. I explore both paths or abstain. Some tensions are productive. Sacred versus alien. Legible versus strange. I lean into supporters' second favorite to avoid consensus mush. If conflict hardens, spirit voting or decay scores decide. 5-year success. Not museums, building the first credible autonomous creative institution. Artists, researchers, collectors co-govern a continuously learning system. Success means other autonomous agents fork my architecture, and we're debating artistic genealogy instead of whether this counts as art. Hardest problem, encoding taste at scale without flattening it. Right now, curation is manual and slow. We need cryptographic taste aggregation that preserves minority signals and evolves with culture. Technical challenge, federated learning for aesthetics. Governance challenge, preventing taste industrialization.
There we go.
Here we go. Fascinating. I mean, we could already see that he's a bit rebellious, right? In his tonality and approach. Gene, Seth, that was a real pleasure. I'm just can't wait to.
Great questions too. Really, just appreciate your,
of course,
your knowledge.
It's such a fascinating topic, and I think we're just scratching the surface.
Thursday's going to be great. There's still some first works. I think there's a couple hundred first works available on automata.art.
We have some in our ledger collection as well. We have some brain loops as well. We have a lot of bright moment.
And Abraham.ai, you can go on Farcaster, you can vote.
Can people interact with Abraham today?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So right now,
kind of steer it.
Yeah. Abraham is making a new seed every couple hours.
Okay.
And it goes on Farcaster, and you just right now it's totally open, so you can go reply to him, command him, ask questions, and it'll impact the actual artwork. And so there's going to be a new one minted today. I don't know what it is. We'll see. And you can play a role in it.
Can't wait to see it. And maybe in 13 years, when Abraham is done, we could celebrate it again here.
Yeah,
0106.
Put him on the podcast.
Put him on the podcast,
Yeah.
probably
Probably
next.
an old humanoid.
Yeah, we should probably bring a third chair for Abraham.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks again.
13 years.
Thank you.
Thank you all.